You get home, and before you've even set your bag down, you're already lying on the bed. Not because you're tired from work, not because you did too much today. Something else. Dinner sits uneaten in the fridge. A message from a friend has been sitting unanswered for 2 days, not because you don't care, but because replying feels like a chore with no clear end. You've thought about cancelling plans you haven't even made yet. You may not want your life to end. You may just want one day where your life stops asking something from you. This is what many people mean when they say they're tired of existing. Not always wanting life to end, but wanting relief from the effort of carrying it. Those experiences can overlap, and if yours has become a real wish not to be alive, that deserves to be shared with someone who can help. That's the shift underneath all of it. Existence stops feeling like a life and starts feeling like a job you can never clock out of. To understand why this happens, you have to see the 3 invisible jobs hidden inside one ordinary day. Most people only notice the first. One phrase sometimes used for part of this experience is existential exhaustion. It is not a formal diagnosis. It is a description of a tiredness tied less to one task than to the ongoing effort of being a person. It does not automatically mean depression or occupational burnout, but it can overlap with either or both. What makes this description useful is this. You can rest, sleep a full 8 hours, take a day off, and still feel the same weight waiting for you when you open your eyes. That can be a clue that the problem isn't only sleep. It's about needing something. Sleep was never built to fix. Rest can quiet the body. It doesn't always quiet the question underneath it. For a lot of people, this starts with one small, disproportionate moment. Brushing your teeth, doing something you've done 1,000 times before, and a thought arrives that doesn't leave. You finish it tonight, and tomorrow it returns. There is no point at which the task stays completed. On its own, that thought isn't dramatic, but once it arrives, it's hard to unthink. The ordinary repetition you never used to notice becomes something you can't stop noticing. And noticing it is exhausting in a way that living it on autopilot never was. Start with the simplest layer, the maintenance load. Every day ask the same list of you. Eat, wash, answer the messages, pay the bill before it's late, get to work on time. Remember the thing you forgot yesterday. None of these tasks on their own are unbearable. A single load of laundry has never destroyed anyone. The problem isn't the difficulty of any one task. It's that none of them ever finish. You do the dishes, and by tomorrow there are dishes again. You answer every message, and by tomorrow there are new ones. There's no version of this list where you get to put it down for good, only versions where you manage to set it down for a few hours before it's due again. That's a specific kind of exhaustion that has nothing to do with laziness or poor time management. It's the exhaustion of a task that was never designed to end. But underneath the maintenance load, there's a second one running at the same time, and it's usually invisible even to the person carrying it, the performance load. You're not just keeping your actual life running. You're keeping up an acceptable version of yourself for everyone watching it. The co-worker who asks how you're doing gets fine. The friend gets a laughing emoji instead of the truth. You show up to work, meet the deadline, smile at the right moments, and somewhere in the middle of all that competence, the actual feeling underneath never gets a turn to exist out loud. Then you get home, the door closes, and whatever was holding you together all day quietly comes apart. Not dramatically, just a kind of collapse into the bed, the couch, the silence. Because performing a functioning person for 8 or 10 or 12 hours is its own kind of labor, and nobody clocks you in or out for it. Some people are especially good at this, because they learned it early. The kid who could read the room and soften it before anyone asked them to. The one who became reliable so young that being reliable eventually stopped feeling like a choice and started feeling like the only self they were allowed to have. As adults, these are often the people everyone leans on. Dependable, easy, emotionally switched on for everyone except themselves. They carry the heaviest performance load of all, because everyone around them has learned to expect it, which makes it even harder to ever set down, without feeling like they're letting someone down. From the outside, none of this shows up on paper. You still get to work on time. You still hit deadlines. You still laugh at the right moment in a conversation. To everyone watching, the system reads as fine, functioning together. Nobody sends help to someone who already looks like they're managing. The third job is the hardest to see. You are not only maintaining your life and maintaining the version of yourself other people expect, you are also maintaining the belief that all this effort is leading somewhere. And when effort repeatedly stops producing relief, progress, or even pleasure, hope itself begins to feel like labor. That is where the failed reward loop begins. At first, trying still worked, at least sometimes. You'd push through a hard week and something would ease. You'd fix one thing and feel a little lighter. But if that pattern breaks, if you keep trying and the relief stops arriving, if the good days stop reliably following the hard ones, your mind starts updating its own math. It stops predicting that effort leads anywhere good. And once that update happens, something quieter and harder to notice than sadness sets in. Not wanting things stops feeling like a mood and starts feeling like information. The show you used to love starts feeling like something to get through instead of something to enjoy. You open it, watch 10 minutes, and turn it off, not because it got worse, but because there's no appetite left in you to receive it. That can resemble anhedonia, the reduced ability to experience pleasure, more than ordinary boredom. The show hasn't changed. Your capacity to anticipate or receive what it once gave you has gone quiet. None of this is a character flaw. They are not avoiding effort because they do not understand its value. They are avoiding it because effort has stopped predicting relief. Part of why this is so hard to shake is that modern life quietly punishes rest before it's been earned. You're praised for staying late, rarely for stopping early. You're admired for pushing through, rarely for pausing to think. So a lot of people learn, without ever being told directly, to measure their worth by how much they're moving. And when they finally stop, guilt arrives before relief does. The mind argues with itself. You haven't earned this yet. There's still more to do. Sitting still is what people who are failing do. But if rest is only allowed to arrive after everything is finished, it never arrives at all. Because in most lives, there's always something left undone. That guilt isn't a personal failing. It's what happens when a system built on constant output quietly trains you to treat stillness as a debt instead of a need. This is also why people in this state start pulling back from other people, and why that gets misread so badly. A message comes in, "Hey, feels like it's been a while, you're free this week," and most people read it as an open door. When you're running on this kind of exhaustion, it reads instead as an invoice, something owed, not something offered. Showering, getting dressed, showing up, showing interest in someone else's week, on top of everything already being carried. The math doesn't work. So the message sits unread, or gets a short reply 3 days late. Sorry, been a lot going on lately. True, but not the whole truth. From the outside, this looks like avoidance, coldness, or someone pulling away from people who love them. From the inside, the withdrawal isn't rejection. It's closer to triage, reducing stimulation when even good, well-meaning contact feels like one more demand the system can't currently meet. That withdrawal carries its own cost, too. Being alone doesn't fully solve this. There's often a quiet guilt underneath it, a fear of becoming someone people eventually stop inviting. But for now, that guilt can still feel safer than forcing your way through one more conversation when there's nothing left to give. That's also why the same old show gets rewatched for the 10th time instead of something new. Not because nothing new exists, but because a rewatch asks nothing of you. The ending was never in question, which is exactly the relief. It's one of the only things left in a day that doesn't ask for a decision, a performance, or a hope that it'll be worth it. In a life full of things that ask something from you, predictability itself becomes a form of rest. By now, all 3 jobs are running at once, keeping the actual life going, keeping the acceptable version of yourself on display, keeping the belief that any of it is leading somewhere. 3 separate, unpaid jobs, hidden inside what looks from the outside like one ordinary day. It's no wonder that a person doing all 3 at once, quietly, for years, without anyone clocking the hours, ends up exhausted in a way that a good night's sleep was never going to touch. And this is why most ordinary rest doesn't work. The body stops, but all 3 jobs keep running. None of this fixes itself through willpower, and it rarely fixes itself through one big change either. There's no single morning where you wake up and all 3 jobs are simply finished. So feeling better does not begin with becoming more disciplined. It begins with finding which job can be made lighter first. What tends to actually help is smaller and less dramatic than people expect. The first is reducing the load, at least temporarily. Not solving your whole life, just shrinking the number of things that ask for a decision today. A repeated breakfast, a smaller rotation of clothes, a simpler plan for the evening. This isn't a cure. It's a way to stop spending scarce energy on choices that don't matter right now. The second is restoring some visible agency. Small, completable actions that actually produce a result you can see on purpose, even if it's tiny. Making a bed nobody will inspect. Watering one plant until the soil is actually wet. Finishing one 5-minute task all the way to the end instead of half-starting 5 different ones. None of these fixes a life, and none is meant to prove anything to anyone. The point is simply to give the part of your mind that stopped expecting effort to work a small, repeated piece of evidence that sometimes it still does. There's also something small worth mentioning here, easy to dismiss as too simple to matter, or may help for a different reason. It's one of the rare forms of reward that doesn't require achievement first. A changing sky, a piece of music that actually reaches you, standing somewhere vast. None of them ask you to perform before they give something back. The third is making at least one part of your life honest again. One relationship, one conversation, one moment where the performance drops, and you say the actual thing instead of fine. It can be as small as texting back, not fine actually, just tired, instead of the reflex answer. You don't need to do this everywhere. You need one place where it's true. And if this exhaustion has begun to include thoughts of not wanting to be alive, say that out loud to someone who can help, a person you trust, or a mental health professional. Those thoughts deserve direct support, whether or not the rest of this video also feels true. Subscribe to FinalSecond for more of the psychology behind the person you already are. Maybe "I'm tired of existing" isn't always a verdict on life. Sometimes It's a protest against the only version of life you can currently see. You may not need to become stronger. You may need one part of your life to stop feeling like a job you can never clock out of.